but just in a general sense, when you're even working for the nonprofit side of things and all that, what is sort of that underlying thing that you're seeing people? Is it imposter syndrome? Is it fear? Is it what is that underlying thing that most people, like you'd say 99% people have this thing in common, and I always have to touch on that when I talk to somebody or I'm coaching somebody?
Ooh, that's such a good question. There's something that's being born of our time and culture. I have two answers, but I'll take this one first. I think with COVID, there we had a lot more time and space to reassess, to reflect, to consider. And so I think for a lot of people, there have been some really big questions about another great quote, Mary Oliver, what am I going to do with this one precious life I have? Right? So there's been sort of a re-questioning. I think that's just a result of time and space that we were given. So that's kind of on a cultural level. And then individually, there are many things that come up for people. The one thing, I guess,
Or
I
like you
don't
could
know.
say two things. You could give me two or three things. I'm just saying because I know there's always one commonality that you could kind of string along across all of them.
Well, one thing that coaching brings. There are many things coaching teaches me and brings me, but one is how much we share, our shared humanity. How sometimes we can feel very alone in it, but actually we all have not only struggle but joy, right? With very similar things. So if I had to look on the struggle side, it's we all have what we call saboteur voices, right? The saboteur could be imposter syndrome, it could be the judge, it could be the critic. And what's really important to learn how to distinguish and discern when that voice is in the room. And you can with practice and with a partner, you can say, there's the judge again, and she sounds like my Aunt Mildred. Like there's a shape to it, right? And then but we also have other voices. And another voice that's very strong is we have an inner wisdom. It's
Mhm.
call it your intuition, call it your gut, call it your inner Yoda, whatever name fits. And that also sounds and feels very different. So just learning to see and hear the difference between the two and recognize it, and then choose which one you strengthen, goes a long way. Because I think what most of us, I don't speak for everyone, what most of us are looking for is the answer to this question: what's right for me? How do
Yeah.
I know what's right for me when something is right for me? It's different than what's right, and it's not about that. And so it's really about reconnecting to your own inner compass, your own, your own sense of that's for me, that
Yeah.
path, that thing, and it will constantly change. That's why you strengthen it. We're hopefully growing alive beings. We're constantly in beta and developing, and may it continue to be so. That's a good place to be, which means that
Hmm.
also there are phases of that growth that are uncomfortable, and those are the times that call for partnership. So learning to strengthen the connection to your own inner wisdom, to your intuition, to really feel into what's calling you, what's right, is a big one.
Yeah. And it's usually for most people I've learned it's usually right in front of you. You're just looking too far ahead to try to find it, but it's usually sitting like right in front of you here.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's another thing. Oftentimes we're in our minds, right? We're either in the past or in the future, but those are just fictions. The only thing that's really real is what's happening right now.
Right.
What's here right now. And then the intuition is where always present. It's not somewhere else, and it's in the body often. And there's so much wisdom the body holds, but we're in Western society, at least, we give so much credence to the mind. You know, prominence to logic, to rational thinking, to strategy, to knowledge. But man, the body holds so much wisdom.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's really crazy. And it can be uncomfortable because you're not used to it. I'm not even used to going there. Like if I asked you, like, what are you feeling right now? What do you feel it? These are not questions we're normally asking each other. Even using our voice, which is obviously body, right?
Yeah.
We're kind of told from childhood not to, you don't make weird sounds, like, but it's using your voice and just expressing like, huh, like
Yeah,
Yeah, it's another important way of expressing in this world. So there's a lot of good stuff. What can I say? So
I love
that's
it.
my very not very short answer to your question.
No, no, no. I love that. I love the depth of that, and I think that that captures a lot of it. And I think nowadays with social media, we all have a sense of, hey, we need a level of validation from other people to be okay with doing the thing. The minute that you take a step back and you say, well, what are these people validating? They don't even know me. They know what I put out there, but they don't really know me. They don't know what I do day to day. They don't know how many people I've helped, how many people have helped me, have, and the sense of validation sometimes can really catch people off track and take them off track, more so
Definitely.
importantly, and say, oh man, I probably shouldn't do this because so and so said this, and I feel now that I'm in my own head and all these other things, and then you just start rolling backwards. And
Yeah.
it's like, no, that's actually, I had somebody else on a podcast, his name is Jeb, one of the most wise people, and he was just like, you know what, when you're really in that place where you feel anxiety, stress, you need validation. Is this okay what I'm doing? Like all these other things, that's where the growth happens. And when you break through that piece of it, then all of that stuff just goes to the back and you keep moving forward and you learn from that. And he says, whatever you're going through right now, because I had some, things that I had going on. I was talking to him, and one thing he told me, he goes, man, just let you know, I went through the same exact thing about 5 years ago. And even a year, 2 years, and 3 years, when I thought back to that point, that was the best time of my life, because without that time, there was no time like the now. Like this shaped everything I'm doing now. That moment of that gray area, like, do I do this thing or do I go this way? And you're in between. That ends up being the most important piece of your life that takes everything to the next level, but you just don't know it at the time. When you're in it, you don't know it because you're pretty much sitting in your own shit at that point. You know what I mean? And it's like you don't know where to turn. What do I do? But when you get out of it, one way or another, you realize that, oh man, I almost wish I can go back to that place just for one more second to experience it. Because same thing I said about the whole burnout thing, right? It's like tapping back into that piece. It's changed so much for me up to this point. It made me want to write. It made me want to decongest my brain. It made me want to do all these things. But without that, I probably would have still been, procrastinating. I would have been doing this, I would have been doing that. But that just pushed me, give me that little nudge that I needed. But it had to be a really hard nudge, because I don't wish burnout upon anybody.
Mm.
But if you don't manage it, if you don't learn it, if you don't from it, then you're going to burn out, and you're going to keep burning out. And then you're just going to feel depressed, and you're going to go down a really bad place. And so I think for us, like now, social media, it's finding the balance. It's like finding, like, what do I listen to? What do I don't care to listen to? What do I actually take in and say, uh-huh, that person gave me some really critical feedback that maybe I don't agree with, but I see where they're coming from, and being honest with yourself. I think that goes a
Mm.
really, really long way with mindset and where people are, heading into. Especially, I mean, I think you're seeing it as well. I see more and more people going into the, starting my own business or starting a side hustle or starting all these things. That comes with a lot of unknowns. So if you're constantly waiting for validation, you're really never going to take that next step, because validation doesn't come with the unknown. It's uncomfortable, that makes you grow a little bit further from that point.
Yeah, absolutely. You're touching on so many things. One thing you're touching on is that validation goes right back to being connection with your own inner wisdom, your own
Hmm.
intuition.
Exactly.
Like if you come from that place, then it's clear that it's that thing. It doesn't mean you can't take feedback. It just
Hmm.
means that you're clear on that thing, that path is the one you're supposed to be on. Now, can you learn from others? Sure, absolutely. So I think that's one thing. The other thing that what you said triggered is there's I think as human beings we all want to be seen. We all
Hmm.
need to be seen. Being
Yeah.
seen is different than being validated, you know?
Yes.
So it's like someone could say, "Oh, I see you," right? And then provide feedback. Validation is where there's like, in my opinion, you haven't really checked in with yourself somewhere.
Hmm.
But a desire to be seen, well, that's just human.
Exactly. Exactly.